Hi, my name is Eric Dalton, and I want to share with you a true story that happened to me, one of those moments that makes you stop and rethink everything. About 40 years ago, I went through what you might call a near-death experience, and that's what changed the course of my life. Before that, I had a very clear goal in mind. I wanted to become a millionaire, and it wasn't just a distant dream. No, I planned to achieve everything before I turned 30, retire early, and live a peaceful life. I grew up in a family where my parents separated. So, from a young age, I learned to fend for myself. At 18, I enlisted in the United States Army during the Vietnam era. I was drafted and served for 3 years. But thankfully, I was able to play basketball and baseball for the Army, which kept me away from the war. It was as if sports had protected me. You see? When my time in the Army was over, I came home and enrolled at university. There, I continued to play baseball for another 4 years, and I truly enjoyed that time. At 21, I fell in love with an amazing girl while I was in Germany. We got married, returned to the United States, and then decided to move back to Germany, where I continued to work in the military field. It was a time full of learning, but also very intense. I traveled a lot for work. I spent 3 out of every 4 weeks away from home. All of this because I was obsessed with climbing the ladder as quickly as possible. I wanted money, success, recognition. But in that rush, I ended up drifting away from my family. And worse, I hurt some people along the way. Today, I regret it. But back then, it seemed like the only way to succeed in life. Until one weekend I came home for Christmas and spent one of the best times with my family. But then, something unexpected happened. Even after that amazing Christmas with my family, my mind was still on work and my personal goals. I felt a bit selfish, you see. And to disconnect from all that, I decided to do something I loved, which is, I went to Park City in Utah and spent the whole day on the slopes. Seriously, it was one of the best ski days of my life. The sun was shining, the snow was perfect, everything was amazing. But when I finished the day and started taking off my gloves, I realized something was seriously wrong. My thumb was practically hanging, as if it had come completely loose up to the wrist, and the other fingers were twisted upward in a way that looked like something out of a horror movie. A friend of mine who's an EMT took a look and said right away, "That's not something you fix with a band-aid." It was serious. So I called my wife, and we headed straight to the nearest hospital, which, by the way, was an hour away. She handled everything, talked to the surgeon, arranged the operation. Meanwhile, all I could think about was what was happening to me. I remember lying down ready to go into the operating room, and honestly, I still regret this today. I didn't say thank you to my wife. I didn't tell her I loved her or that I loved our kids. At that time, we already had 3 children. I was just taken straight into the room. I lay down on the operating table and let it happen, thinking it was a simple procedure. The anesthesiologist who was supposed to sedate me was called away for an emergency. So, what did they do? They put an air-filled tourniquet on my arm with 2 valves to stop the bleeding. After draining it, they lowered my arm, tightened the 2 valves, and applied local anesthesia with lidocaine directly into my hand. I thought this was normal. Nothing serious. They put up a screen between my face and where the doctor was operating, so I couldn't see anything, but I could hear everything. Then the pressure from the tourniquet started to bother me. The pain became unbearable, and the doctor asked the nurse to loosen the top valve a bit. She did, and for a moment, everything seemed to go back to normal. But what happened next was completely unexpected. A little while later, I started to feel the same pressure returning to my arm, but this time it was different and much worse. The nurse who was there had never performed this kind of procedure before, and unknowingly, she ended up making a mistake. She loosened the second valve of the tourniquet, but forgot to close the first one. That's when everything started to spiral out of control. Suddenly, I felt a very strange sensation, something I had never experienced before, as if the medication was traveling up my arm, going straight through my heart and spreading throughout my chest. And then, everything changed. The next thing I knew, I was no longer lying on that stretcher. I was standing, but it wasn't an ordinary stand. I was outside my body, literally looking down at myself there on the operating table. Even though my body wasn't moving at all, I could see everything very clearly. I looked past the sheet and saw the doctor working on me as if it were a scene from a movie. That's when the machine started to beep. My heart had stopped. The nurse ran out of the room in a panic. Desperate, she screamed. I blamed her at first, but I don't really hold it against her now. I hope one day she sees this video and understands that I bear no grudge. If I could speak to her, I would say, it wasn't your fault, but at that moment, while my body lay still, something very strange, yet peaceful, happened. I realized I was not alone. I felt a presence beside me. This is what I call my companion. Together, we watched it all unfold. The doctor kept working on my thumb, trying to fix the damage. I clearly remember he put in a pin to hold the bone, but it was too long and even stuck out through my skin. He had to remove it, cut off the excess, and put it back in. It was surreal. My companion and I were amazed by his precision. Then, just after the nurse bolted out, a whole team rushed in. Nurses, doctors, everyone fighting with everything they had to bring me back. And I will never forget the speed, the energy, and the urgency in that moment. It was as if time had stopped, and at the same time was racing against me. I could clearly hear everything everyone was saying in the room, but the most remarkable part was the voice of my companion. He didn't speak aloud. He communicated directly into my mind. It was a calm, straightforward communication without any audible words, yet I understood everything perfectly. Then he told me in a very serene tone that it was time to go, and just like that, the scene changed completely. In the blink of an eye, I was transported to the most beautiful place I had ever seen in my life. And believe me, that's coming from someone who has seen a lot. I was standing in an open field with tall grass gently swaying before me. To my left there was a meadow covered in wildflowers with colors so vivid no paint could capture them. Over there, in the distance on the left, stood giant trees with trunks like pillars, almost reaching the sky. Right in front of me floated 3 clouds, but these weren't ordinary clouds. The 2 on the sides were pure white, as pristine as illuminated cotton. The one in the middle was special. It had a pearlescent glow that shifted hues as I gazed at it. I knew I couldn't look back. My companion had warned me, but I was free to see everything ahead and to my sides, and what I saw took my breath away. The trees on the far left were so beautiful they seemed straight out of a dream. They had brilliant red leaves mixed with glass-like tones and a subtle touch of yellow, a contrast I had never seen before. Even more incredible, the flowers all turned toward me as if they knew I was there. The leaves seemed to bow in my direction as if warmly welcoming me. There was no wind yet. Everything around me moved gently, as if an invisible living energy was flowing toward me. To my right, the grass noticed me too. The golden tip shimmered, and each slender green blade bent toward me. It was as if nature itself wanted to embrace me. From those flowers, those trees, that grass came a feeling so strong and so real that I don't even know if the word love fully captures it. It was as if everything around me was alive and aware of my presence, enveloping me in a warmth I had never experienced before, neither with people nor at any other time in my life. This place understood me completely, without me having to say a word. But then, after spending some time there, I noticed something strange. My companion was no longer behind me, and it was at that moment that something even more incredible happened. Right in front of me, as if it were a huge invisible screen, a movie of my life began to play. This wasn't an ordinary memory. It was as if I was truly reliving everything again, from the moment I was born, lying in my mother's womb, up to my 28 years. Everything was so clear, so detailed, that it felt more real than life itself. I saw my parents, how they raised me, the sacrifices they made for me, the sleepless nights, the advice I sometimes ignored. I saw my talents in sports, especially football, which I loved to play when I was younger, and how my family went out of their way to support me, even when it was costly and difficult to keep that dream alive. I saw my time in the army, my college years, and then my professional development. But the most striking part was seeing how I treated people along the way. Some actions were good, others not so much, and some, honestly, left me feeling ashamed. The most curious thing is that, while revisiting these moments, I realized that none of my material possessions were there. No boats, no houses, no fancy cars, none of that mattered. What was shown with complete clarity was how I treated people, and that's where everything made sense. I was judged not for what I had, but for who I was, and in that judgment, love was the measure. Each mistake was shown with compassion, but I also felt as if it were inside me, what the people I had hurt had felt at the time. It was a powerful experience, yet it was carried out with so much love that instead of breaking me, it taught me. When it was all over, I felt a deep peace and found myself standing silently before it all, simply feeling. So, in that silence filled with love and peace, I heard a voice coming directly from the cloud. It said, "Come," and it wasn't just the sound calling me, it was as if every element around me gently pushed me forward with affection. The grass, just like before, seemed to lean toward me, as if alive and encouraging me. The flowers too turned and accompanied me as if saying, "Go on, don't be afraid." Then something even more incredible happened. From the cloud where the voice came, rays of light began to emerge, so strong yet so gentle that they felt like invisible arms pulling me toward that call. It wasn't a force forcing me to go. It was like an embrace drawing me in with such deep love that my heart could feel it. And then, as I got closer to the cloud, I saw something I'll never forget. An arm appeared from within. Everything went silent. Time seemed to stop. I had all the time in the world to observe this arm, a strong, peaceful forearm full of determination. It was the arm of someone powerful, someone who knew me deeply. The hand was outstretched, angled downward, as if ready to pull me into the cloud. But at the same time it beckoned gently, not forcefully. The fingers were open, the thumb extended, and it felt like this hand had been waiting for me forever. In that moment, something inside me understood. I was dead. I knew that if I took that hand, I wouldn't return, because I'd been told clearly I couldn't look back. It was like crossing a sacred boundary. So I obeyed the voice in my mind and reached out. I touched the hand of this presence and felt something I'd never felt before. A love so pure, so absolute, that words couldn't describe it. I squeezed that hand twice because I didn't want to let go. I wanted to stay. I needed that. But then it began to retreat slowly, pulling back inside the cloud. And as it withdrew, I heard the voice again, this time firmer, clearer. "It's not your time yet. You still have things to do." These words have echoed in my mind every day for over 40 years. They accompany me like a mission, a reminder that my journey in this life isn't over yet. Then, in an instant, everything changed again. I found myself back in my body, and it was far from a pleasant return. I was being wheeled out of the operating room, with a white sheet covering my face, as if everyone had already accepted that I was gone. There was even a certificate on my chest stating that I had been dead for 20 minutes. But suddenly, I pulled the sheet off my face and shocked everyone. The doctor and nurses nearly collapsed in disbelief. Imagine thinking someone is dead, and then they suddenly sit up and look around. That's exactly what happened. They started moving me out of there, still struggling to believe what they had just witnessed. Meanwhile, my wife was outside waiting, completely unaware of what was going on inside. The doctor rushed to her and urgently said, "He's fine, everything's okay, we brought him back." But for her, waiting there without any news, with a heavy heart and 3 young children at home, it was a nightmare. She probably thought she might have to raise the children alone, completely in the dark about what was happening inside, while I was living the most incredible experience of my life. As she cried out of fear, I saw colors. Colors like I'd never seen before. Not only did I see them, but I could feel them. Since returning, I have been gifted with something unique. I can taste colors. It might sound crazy, I know, but it's real. It's hard to explain how you taste a color, but I swear, each color has its own distinct flavor and vibration. Since that moment, my perception of the world has never been the same. Then when they took me down the hall and into a room, something even more special happened. For 3 days straight, I felt a peace, a complete, total peace. And when I say total, there's no exaggeration. It's the kind of peace you don't experience here on Earth. A deep tranquility, as if time worries and the burdens of life simply vanished. During those 3 days, I felt as if one foot was still in that other place. Inside, everything was calm and silent, even though the world around me kept making noise. And it's curious. On the 3rd day, a journalist came into my room. He was working on an article about near-death experiences and wanted to understand what I had been through. This was more than 40 years ago, and the most amazing thing is that recently I found that same journalist again. He remembered me, the article, my story, and even more than that, he remembered the spark in my eyes when I shared it all, as if it had happened yesterday. I remember thinking back then that I would never tell this story to anyone. It felt so sacred, so profound, that it seemed impossible to put into words everything I had experienced. It was like trying to explain a feeling that doesn't quite fit into earthly language. I kept it to myself like a treasure, not knowing how to express or share it. And honestly, I never imagined, even in my wildest dreams, that one day I would have the chance to share this story with people all over the world. But it happened, and it's a tremendous blessing to be able to open my heart and share this experience with so many. The most surprising part is discovering how many others have gone through something similar but remain silent, because like me at first, they don't know how to express it. Being able to talk with these people, hear their stories, and help them recognize the gifts they've received is one of the most rewarding things in my life. Thank you so much for listening to me, for taking the time to hear this story that I have carried in my heart for over 40 years. I'm not sharing this by accident. I'm sharing it because I believe everyone who listens has something precious inside them that they may not have discovered yet. Life, with all its ups and downs, is an incredible gift, but its true value doesn't lie in what we conquer or accumulate. It lies in how we touch the hearts of those around us. If there's one lesson that has stayed with me since that day, it's that love, empathy, and kindness are the only things that truly last. Money can pay the bills, yes, and bring comfort, but it will never replace a gesture of affection, a word of encouragement, or a moment of genuine connection with someone. What really matters is what you do with the time you have here. How do you choose to treat the people you meet? Because when everything is taken away, that's all that remains, the love you gave and the good you've done. So please, take that with you. Be the difference in someone's life. Spread light wherever you are. And if this message has touched you in any way, if it resonated with you, I invite you to subscribe to the channel. Here we share stories that remind us of what truly matters, and who knows, maybe the next story to inspire the world will be yours. Thank you again, and see you in the next video.